I really am the Garfunkel of this relationship. Best way to bet the NFL is win totals. In this win projection series, you will get to see the logic behind Big Ryan the Fat Guy's win total projections and how you can win whatever contest you decide to enter for the 2018 NFL season. Fat Guy, Jacksonville, 10 wins last year. Talk about their season.
It was awesome. It was awesome to watch the Jaguars last season. I enjoyed it every bit as much as everyone else did, I hope. They had a huge win for us when they beat the Seattle Seahawks and covered the spread at home. They did well in the playoffs. They really should have beaten the Patriots. The Jaguars' defense was awesome. It was just an excellent season. It's nice to be positive after having to talk about the Indianapolis Colts.
That defensive line is so fun to watch. They just get after it every play.
Yeah, they earned a new nickname, Saxonville. The Jaguars are definitely another team to watch this year.
At head coach, Doug Marrone went 10-6 last year. It's his second season back with the team. Talk about Doug Marrone.
Well, his decision to decline the head coaching job in Buffalo and take a positional coaching role in Jacksonville has sure paid off. He was patient, and now he's getting the wins. He said he never dreams of blowing teams out, but he should be this year. This is a really strong team, and he had a strong coaching performance last year, and I expect the same this year.
I believe he still got paid for that other job. Is that correct?
Yeah, he probably did. It's the NFL. They pay everybody, except the players.
And the cheerleaders.
Oh, right.
At offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett is back for his third season.
Nathaniel Hackett, been a quarterback coach for a long time, did a really good job last year.
And at defensive coordinator for his third season, it's going to be Todd Wash.
The defense was so dominant last year, you shouldn't change anything, and I'm glad they didn't.
It's almost surprising his name wasn't bandied around as a head coaching candidate.
Well, one of those things is he might be entrenched at this job because why would you want to leave? Why would you want to leave coaching one of the most dominant units in the entire league to go to be the head coach of a fledgling team where you might not have a chance to keep your job for very long?
Now, for notable player additions, they added quarterback Cody Kessler.
Okay, yep.
Wide receiver Dante Moncrief.
I'm not really sure how to feel about that. I think he's a downgrade to Alan Hearns.
Now, this is a big one. They added guard Andrew Norwell.
The thing I liked about this is there were so many reports about him going to the Giants or wherever, and the Jacksonville Jaguars slipped right under the radar, and they added him, and it really shored up their offensive line. I'm excited about this signing.
At tight end, they've added Niles Paul and Austin Seferian-Jenkins.
ASJ had a resurgence in New York last year, and Niles Paul, he's had a somewhat spotty career in Washington. They kind of need someone to replace Mercedes Lewis, so Niles Paul should be able to do that. ASJ might be a threat offensively in the pass game for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he's also had a very spotty career himself, so it's really hard to say.
Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. They added cornerback DJ Hayden, a familiar name.
Yeah, first-round pick out of Houston for the Oakland Raiders, who then transferred to the Detroit Lions, and now he's on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They lost Aaron Colvin, so they kind of need to fill that spot at cornerback. Maybe he can do it. He hasn't really done it his entire career. He's underachieved for how high he's been drafted, but a change of scenery and being on a dominant defense might just be the cure to fix that.
A couple of other depth signings were safeties Don Carey and Cody Davis.
They're a little bit long in the tooth at safety, even though there was a positive showing. So maybe they're just trying to give some depth, maybe ease off some snaps so they can keep everybody fresh.
Let's quickly go over some guys that they lost. They lost some big names. First, we'll start with running back Chris Ivory.
Well, Chris Ivory is a big name, but he was a healthy scratch in a lot of games. It shouldn't affect them whatsoever with the Fournette-Yeldon combo.
At wide receiver, they lost two of their staples in Alan Hearns and Allen Robinson.
Now, that's a bit tough. They lost WR1 and WR2, but they played the entire year pretty much without Allen Robinson, and they were very successful. So, again, I think they can make it through this.
And a staple on their team for a long time, they lost Mercedes Lewis.
Yes, they did lose Mercedes Lewis, but he was really, really at the end of his career. I'm not sure if he retired or not, but he's had a good, solid career for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'll quickly mention this before we jump to the defense. They also lost wide receiver Jalen Strong.
This one
almost a mean nothing.
Yeah, this is no big deal. They picked up enough wide receiver rookies last year that Jalen Strong won't be missed.
And probably the biggest loss after Mercedes Lewis is middle linebacker Paul Posluszny. It was pretty sweet. What was it, Miles Jack or was it Telvin Smith?
Telvin Smith.
About him after.
Yeah, Telvin Smith was really inspired by Paul Posluszny. Paul Posluszny was the anchor of this defense as far as leadership goes. He played really, really tough style of football. He was traded by the Jaguars and acquired from the Buffalo Bills, and he's just been pretty much a NFL tackle leader every year since.
So let's jump through this roster. At quarterback, they're living and dying with Blake Bortles.
I know, it's hard to say. I was hoping they were going to win the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes, but they didn't. They stuck to their guns. They kept Blake Bortles. This is definitely one of the weaker spots on the roster, and usually you don't want quarterback to be weaker spots, but they're strong in so many other spots that they should still be successful.
At running back, they do have that 1-2 punch of Leonard Fournette and TJ Yeldon.
It's very, very decent grouping, very strong grouping. You have so much bruising ability by Fournette. Yeldon is a good change of pace back.
They also have Corey Grant.
Corey Grant can provide some third down support during the games.
At wide receiver, they have Marquise Lee. They've brought in Dante Moncrief. They drafted DJ Chark in the second round. They also have two highlighted players who played very well last year in Dede Westbrook and Keelan Cole.
I'm more interested in Dede Westbrook and Keelan Cole. They busted off so many big plays last year that were really key for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to take over consistent starting reps, but I really hope that they can. They were the most exciting players on the offensive side of the ball aside from Fournette last year for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
A couple other guys they have are Jaden Mickens and Rashad Green, so they do have a lot of depth here. There's going to be definitely a camp battle for wide receiver.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's no clear WR1, so I want to see how it shakes out.
And at tight end, like we mentioned before, it's Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Niles Paul, Ben Koyak might play some snaps, maybe James O'Shaughnessy.
That's tough to say. There's nothing amazing there, but tight end, if you don't have Gronkowski or Zach Ertz, I mean, you're all going to kind of look like this.
From left to right on the offensive line, standout tackle Cam Robinson, highly paid free agent Andrew Norwell, terrific center and Brandon Linder. They also have AJ Cann and Jeremy Parnell.
I like this offensive line a lot. Cam Robinson was one of my favorite players in the draft last year. I was really surprised that he slipped all the way to the second round, early second, and he went from swing tackle to right tackle to starting left tackle all in one training camp. So any of the struggles he had last year are definitely not shared with the coaching staff because they were confident enough to play him pretty much every game starting left tackle. I think every game. And I felt he performed decently. Leonard Fournette had a very, very decent year, and the Jacksonville Jaguars did so as a whole.
What's the over-under on Tommy Bohannon touchdowns this year?
Tommy Bohannon, fullback wonder, formerly of the Rex Ryan Jets. I don't know, I'm going to say we'll set it at 3. Yeah, I think it'll land on 3.
Now the exciting part. Let's move to the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. This defensive line is just great. Yannick Ngawe, Calais Campbell, Malik Jackson, Avery Jones, Dante Fowler Jr., Marcel Darius, DeJuan Smoot. They added a first-round pick D tackle in Taven Bryan. What? It's good.
They're like, you could just dissect everybody, but they're all good. And again, I think it's Yannick Ngawe. I'll probably get it wrong again, so will he. We're probably wrong right now. But he was excellent. They have so many players that can play. I don't even know if he said Dante Fowler. They didn't pick up his option. I can understand why when you're so loaded at the position and it's so expensive to pick up an option. But they're very, very good. Yeah, and they added a run stuffer in their first-round pick, Bryant, this year. So they've really just doubled down on this position. It's the best in the league, this defensive line.
Other teams need to use this as the blueprint.
It should be, and Calais Campbell really started it all. Arizona opted to let him go. That was a good idea, wasn't it?
No kidding. At linebacker, it's highlighted by Miles Jack and Telvin Smith, but there is a big hole at middle linebacker. Will those guys be able to fill the void in Paul Posluszny?
Totally. Telvin Smith is such a badass. And Miles Jack is coming around too. Miles Jack, another guy who slipped in the draft. Telvin Smith is just as good as they get. Miles Jack is decent. I have full confidence they'll be able to find somebody to fill Paul Posluszny's role.
Now moving on to corners, Jalen Ramsey, AJ Bouye. Other guys they brought in, DJ Hayden. They have Tyler Patman.
There's a third-round rookie as well, I believe they drafted.
He's listed at free safety. And safeties as well. They got Barry Church, Deshaun Gibson. Those are 2 veteran players, as well as Don Carey, Cody Davis, the 3rd-round pick, and Ronnie Harrison. This secondary is highlighted by Ramsey, highlighted by Bouye. It's going to be good.
AJ Bouye was a free agent signing. He got paid so much money. Everyone was like, what are they doing? Because he only had 10 or 12 good games in Houston. So it was kind of a gamble, but it looked like last year it really paid off because he played incredible. Of course, Ramsey has to take the WR1 on every opposing team, but the leftovers are definitely cleaned up by Bouye. They did have some hiccups throughout the year in a couple games. Like against Seattle, they gave up a couple easy touchdowns, that secondary that they shouldn't have. Kind of let Seattle back in the game. But as a whole, that has been a shutdown secondary. And when you pair it with a good pass rush, it's just really hard to score points on this defense, and it should be next year.
What's the strength of this roster?
The entire defense. I mean, they get so many sacks that I have to give it the defensive line, the tip of the shades, tip of the hat. And on offense, their offensive line is pretty decent, and run game seems to be good too.
What's the biggest weakness of this roster?
Quarterback play for sure, and wide receiver is a big question mark. I don't want to crap on Blake Bortles a ton, but he does have his work cut out for him because he's given such a strong support in both defense and offense. So, and because he's got a run game and he's got a shutdown defense. So just don't turn the ball over. You can be conservative. Blake Bortles really needs to show up for them to make a run at the Super Bowl this year.
Jacksonville Jaguars team grade going into the season is a B from us. Fat guy, you want to elaborate?
B is a good grade. It's a good grade. It's more than passing. It's more than average. They're one of the premier teams in the National Football League.
With a B grade, we have the Jags winning 10.9 games in 2018. It might be surprising to some, but we have the Jags as favorites in every game but one. This includes hosting the Eagles, the Patriots, and the Steelers. The only game where the Jags are not the favorites are when they travel to Tennessee in Week 14 to take on Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans. Fat guy, with an over-under of 8.5, how quickly are we going to make this over bet?
Well, generally speaking, I'm a perennial pessimist, just like my outlook on life. But in this case, I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to hammer the over with all of my might. And that's a lot of might if you can muster it.
Oh, that is a lot of might. So like this video if you agree with Big Ryan the Fat Guy. Comment below on how many wins you think the Jags will have in 2018. And subscribe for more non sequiturs and NFL projections.